Well, hey there, and welcome to this interview with Brian Mosley and RightNow Media. My name is Hannah Augustine, and I'm the program director here at KidzMatter. And one of the things I love about what I do is having the opportunity to meet incredible people like Brian and his team who are really resourcing churches all over the place. And they have so many incredible things that they've created. And they've actually just launched a brand new resource. You may know their God's Kids curriculum that just came out, and we'll talk about that. But I did want Brian to kick things off with a general overview of what Right Now Media is. I know if you're listening and watching, many of you already are familiar with the incredible resources they offer. But just in case you haven't checked out what they have to give to the church community, I wanted him to give an overview. So, Brian, welcome. We're so excited to have you.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. I'm honored to be here. Fun to get to share a little bit about what God's doing to the ministry, and yeah, just excited to be here with you. So, you want me to just a little overview of Right Now
Beautiful.
Media?
Yeah, give us an
Okay.
overview. We'd love to hear.
Our passion really is just trying to help churches with disciple making, and we've done that historically through creating curriculum and creating content that can go into the groups and communities that churches offer. Primarily for the last 30 plus years, we've done it for students and adult Bible study groups. And so, whether it's a youth ministry or a home group or a Sunday school class or whatever, we've created a lot of video driven Bible study material that can help that teacher, that volunteer leader facilitate Bible study with their people. So we love the church. We want to help create those disciples. And so we get to do that with churches all around the country and really now even around the world, which has been really cool to work with, many great leaders and teachers from other parts of the world that also are passionate about helping make disciples in their church. So again, we're content folks, but we know that disciple making is more than just content, but we want to be a content part of that disciple making journey.
Which is incredible, and there are so many ways your church as a whole can partner with Right Now Media. I've been to churches that are offering the curriculum or, the different resources for anybody in their congregation, and I love that, right?
Yeah,
Helping people get connected with godly resources and, video training, all of those different things. My church used to use it for even, like, our volunteer training
yeah,
material, things like that. So, there's so many amazing ways that you can connect with their team. So, if you haven't checked that out, visit their website. That's a great place to get started. But like I mentioned, they did just launch something more aimed at the kids space.
yeah.
Brian mentioned that they've really been focusing more on youth and adults and how they're diving into kids ministry curriculum. So what made you guys decide to even go this direction? What makes it unique? Tell us about God's Kids.
Sure. Probably we're kind of crazy for doing it because we're learning as we go here that okay, this is a big and it's just such an important world, but it's like it's a big world, a big undertaking to try to work alongside these kids and families and the kids ministers. So really about 3 or 4 years ago, kind of at the tail end of all of our COVID experience, we were kind of asking ourselves, okay, God, you've given us this great history of serving youth ministries, serving adult Bible study groups. We have this passion for the church. What is next for us? Not that we just were like, where do you take us from here? And kind of in that soul searching and praying, we just realized, okay, we have this passion for kids. I mean, both personally, I'm a dad of 4 kids. I've served in my kids' ministry at our church. We had personal passion for it, but also as we were looking at the church, we just thought that's an area that we would love to come alongside and serve, but we had it really in a profound way. And so we just began dreaming and brainstorming. Okay, what could that look like? What would that look like? And so, just born out of this passion for again helping the church with disciple making and thinking, well, we're not doing it in this area as much. So what if we took a big step of faith and went that direction? So it's been about an 18-month process up to this point. We're just at the front end of launching that. It's been a fun journey, but man, we've learned so much just over the last year and a half trying to figure this out.
I'm sure. I was actually just meeting with one of our team members, and like she said, when you're in kids ministry, you know how to make it work, and y'all are diving into that and figuring out how do we make this work because it is a huge world, and
Yeah.
there is so much that goes into this, scope and sequence, and thinking through small churches, big churches, medium
Hmm.
sized churches,
Hmm.
lots of things. So I'm sure y'all have learned a lot along the way. And as you mentioned, this is a huge world. There are a lot of different curricula out there. What is it about God's Kids that is really setting it apart from, so many different options that are available?
Yeah. First would just say, yeah, there's a lot of great curriculums out there. I mean, again, been in volunteering in my church and we were using a great curriculum. So I know there's tons of great stuff out there. When we set out to do this, a couple thoughts we had in our mind was certainly first and foremost, we wanted to be scripture saturated and focus on the gospel and just, okay, this is biblically solid. And so that was kind of not even a like, should it be or shouldn't it be? It was like, you got to do that. Um, but the other big element that we wanted to pair with that was how do you make this really kind of easy to use for the church and the volunteers to engage because I mean, kids ministry is run by volunteers. So you got folks that are certainly passionate about kids, but they don't have, it's not their full time job. They don't have maybe Bible degrees and seminary degrees. They're just like, hey, I'm a dad or a mom or a person in the church that wants to serve these kids. So we want to make it really easy for that volunteer to implement, and we wanted to marry both, not like say, well, it has to be either easy to use or biblically strong. We wanted both to be there. Our background as a ministry is in the video driven, you know, content for both, again, the students and the adults that we serve. So we knew that video needed to be a part of it. Just that was our expertise. And yet we didn't, I mean, we're kind of screen saturated as a world. So we didn't want to make it like only screens. So it was like, how do you most effectively use screens to engage and set up the teaching for the kids? And yet make sure there's not just all screens, but really a chance to interact, with each other as kids and with the volunteers and make it an interactive discipleship experience. So the big things for us was biblically accurate, easy to use, and then we wanted to rope the parents in. And so again, been a dad of 4 kids. I've gotten all the take home sheets and the things that you hope are being used as you leave the church that Sunday morning, but knowing that's hard to do. So our team has created an app that coincides with the curriculum, so that mom and dad will get kind of a prompt, really just 3 times a week. Hey, here's a short video and a question to watch with your kids, or here's a prayer to have and a couple questions to ask, like just create and help equip the mom or dad to be part of that disciple making, process with the church. So the parent part was a real key to us as well, knowing that church is important, but when they go home, what is the ongoing engagement and activity and growth that's happening there? And I think most moms and dads don't feel real equipped to do that. And we wanted to make sure they had some tools to do that easily at their fingertips.
That is a great and very unique, aspect for sure to be able to put some more things in a parent's hands. It's hard. We've discussed this a lot in our Kidman Academy program.
Mhm.
How do we help parents, have the takeaways? How do we help them do this at home? And really appreciate that y'all are thinking of it from that angle of
Yeah.
helping these Kidman leaders, these kids pastors get that resource in a parent's hand in a way that works for them and that's going to be feasible with their schedule and everything they have going on.
Yeah. I was just thinking, so my youngest son is now 16, but a number of years ago, a friend of his invited him to VBS. And so they went to another church's VBS. That was all great. In fact, it's actually where my son decided to follow Jesus. So it was a really special like week for us, to see him going to this VBS, but kind of have that be the moment that God really captured his heart. But what was really fascinating is in the weeks following that church, again, not the church that we attend. So we weren't like members there. We were just VBS attender. And the one of the leaders there, like, they just sent us these short little emails every week. I mean, not specifically to us, but just to the parents. And it wasn't like, "Hey, come to our thing," or, "Hey, we got a new program." It was all like, "Hey, here's a short little article about what's going on kind of in culture that maybe helps connect you to how to, be a parent." And or here's a little tip on how to, and we were just, both my wife and I were like, that's just really amazing that the church is now partnered with us in that way. They're not trying to just invite us to their thing, but they're like, hey, we want to help you grow and be a part of your kid's life. And that's stuck with me now these number of years, because it's like, okay, I know that for most churches, it's like, hey, we just want people to keep coming to our thing. And how do we keep message out there to invite them? That's all important. But I just love that they kind of turned the table and said, no, you're at home with your kid. How do we help you? And so all I had to say, I know it's overwhelming to do the Sunday morning stuff as kids ministry people because there's just so many moving parts. I was just impressed with this church's desire to say, hey, a little 3 sentence, 4 sentence email once a week kind of help equip those parents. It was just a good little example to us.
That's a great perspective because you're right. Parents don't just need come to the, donuts and dads or
Yeah.
whatever it is that you're doing. They need practical handholds for how do I do this new phase of parenting? Whether that's
Yeah.
I have a new elementary schooler or a new preschooler or a new teenager. So I love that practical example and that you all are trying to capture that in this curriculum and give kids pastors a leg up on doing
Yeah.
that for families.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned easy, and I know easy can have a negative connotation, but maybe
Yeah.
simple, being
Yeah.
achievable, right?
Yeah.
Approachable. And why would you say, kids ministry volunteers are feeling so overwhelmed? Why do you think that is? And how can churches help better encourage and equip them?
Yeah. I think, again, just not that everything's based on my own personal experience, but just my own experience volunteering in our kids ministry. I look around every week that I'm back there. And it's like, these are great, passionate people who love kids, but but none of us have like, I mean, none of us are trained on really how to teach and educate kids as volunteers. We're just there because we want to make sure the kids are being taught and being shepherded well. Um, so I think there's a lot of overwhelmingness because again, it's about for me even stepping in. It's like, okay, I've now been entrusted with these kids for this little bit of time on a Sunday morning. I'm getting to know them, over the course of the weeks and months, and yet this is really important stuff. Like we're teaching the Word of God, we're trying to help them, be exposed to who God is and His love for them, and so there's this heavy weight on it, but I think there's also just logistically, it's like, okay, did I get the right handouts? Did I print the right things? Is this activity going to meet this kid's need versus that kid's need? Is the media, the AV stuff going to work for me? So I think there's all these questions, in the back of your head that's like, that's all important, but it's not really even as important as just that connection with the kids. But all that other stuff, in my own experience, can kind of get in the way of like, okay, did I really get a chance to make a heart connection, or was it just kind of logistically I checked all the boxes? So I just think it can be kind of overwhelming, And so I think as a church, I mean, certainly if whatever kind of training, equipping, and just confidence building you can give those volunteers on a regular basis, like just little nuggets, is great. From a curriculum standpoint, yeah, we tried to design it to where the AV part of it's real easy. You don't need you don't need PowerPoint or ProPresenter or some other software. You can actually play the videos right out of the website. So you just log in, click play, and it would then display up on your screen or TV. Um, Tried to make the lessons real customizable where you can use it as is, or you can adjust and say, I'm going to do this first or this second, and move it around if you need to. But it really is, from our standpoint, it really is just trying to go, how can you remove any technological and logistical barriers so that you have a chance just to connect one on one with the kids? Because we believe wholeheartedly that that person that God's put in that classroom at that moment is there to help shepherd and disciple. And we just want to remove the barriers from them doing that.
I know as a non-techie person, I appreciate that. I have wrestled ProPresenter to the ground in the past, and so I can
Yeah.
appreciate a simple way to run things. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And you're right, kids ministry leaders, even if nowadays, ministries in total can be run by a volunteer. And so
Oh,
they
yeah.
are working multiple jobs, they have families at home, and then they're coming in on Sundays and running it all. Even in, I was in a very large church context.
Mhm.
Sure, I was paid to run the ministry, but it wasn't really run by me. It's run by 30, 40,
Yeah.
50, 60 volunteers. And so you're absolutely right. These are people you represented, me represented, who may or may not have the boots on the ground experience, and helping make that as simple as possible when it comes to here's the theology, here's the story, here,
Mhm.
it's not a 30-step craft. I remember doing
Mhm.
a craft one time. I think we were making a paper boat. It was an origami boat. Oh, no. It was I mean, kids were crying because they couldn't figure it out. It was terrible. So, and it all seemed like a great idea at the time, and then the volunteers didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
The kids are in tears because I can't figure it out. So, I appreciate that you all are coming at this from a perspective of how do we make it simple, not watered down,
Yeah.
boring, but simple and achievable for really any leader of any capacity. That's a really beautiful approach.
Yeah, we hope, and I mean, I'll just be first to say we're going to learn along the way. I mean, we're going to have to adjust and adapt as we get some of these churches really firsthand using it. But yeah, that's our hope, is to make it really accessible to those volunteers, and then just rooted in Scripture so the kids are walking away with that firm foundation.
Talk us through a little bit of just some of the practical aspects, like what are the physical things provided? Are you getting like a small group guide or, and I know this is off script. So what are some of the things so that if I, were to purchase this curriculum for my church, practically, what am I getting? What am I going to need to do to prepare for a Sunday?
Yeah. So we're trying to put it, digitally in the hands of the church so they can use it and have, choose what they want to use or not use, right? So it's like they're going to get every week. There's typically going to be 4, maybe 5 short videos that they can intersperse throughout that, 40 to 60 minutes that they have with the kids. There'll be an engagement video, which is just kind of a fun, like, let's draw their attention in. There'll be a short animated Bible video that just really tells the story of that particular week's passage. We'll include like a 3 to 5 minute on camera, like a trained, great Bible teacher teaching kind of at the kids' level. That our thought there is, hey, if you're a volunteer and you don't feel equipped to really teach in that kind of way, then play the video. If you're a volunteer or a leader, then you're like, no, I'm great at teaching. Don't play the video. You could use the video as kind of some cues, but that's just there if you need it. And then there's a library of worship videos that you can use at the beginning or the end of the lesson. So from a video standpoint, there's several. From an activity or a written standpoint, there'll be kind of a one-page summary. The other thing that we've experienced, using some different curriculums is you get so many pages, you kind of get lost in the shuffle of like, hey, wait, am I on page 3 or page 8 or where am I at now in the deal? So we want to start with just a one-page overview summary. Like you could really run the whole lesson from that page if you kind of did your homework. Then behind that, there'll be kind of the details of the lesson. So you can say, okay, this is kind of step by step what I need to do if I need a little bit more hand holding throughout it. And then, activities and games, all that stuff though is available really just online to print and make available if you need it in print form, or if you just want to use it in digital form. And then we will have some posters and other things that you can choose to add on and put up around the classroom if you kind of want to have that visual kind of touch point with the kids in your classroom itself. And then, like I said, then the app will be freely available to every parent who's got a kid in the kids ministry, and that will because you could start the God's Kids curriculum pretty much any time in the year. If you're like, hey, we're starting on September the 2nd, or we're starting on October the 4th, or whatever date you're choosing, that's when your week one will be. And so the parent app will coincide with that. So that in your church, all the parents on week one will be prompted with, 3 prompts that coincided with that week's lesson and so on. So we hope that that's a big part of the kids, the church's kind of promotion of this is like, hey, parents, we want you involved. Here's a way to get access to this and kind of follow along with your kids throughout each week.
Couple highlights from that. The one-page summary, amazing. I've had to make those for my volunteers, right?
Hmm.
And even me, I will read through the whole thing, but I very much wanna kinda do it my own way, but
Yeah,
they have that summary of, "Oh, right, that's the activity that's next," or, "Oh, yes, I forgot that this part of the story." So, love that,
yeah.
and even if you're listening, all of those video options really are a blessing. We all have a week where our voice is gone, the key
Hmm.
volunteer had to step out and you didn't prepare the story because you thought they were teaching it. All of those things are so great. And even using that, key Bible story video to train your volunteers. Like, hey,
Hmm.
person who
Hmm.
is, they know their stuff, they're high quality, watch this and then model it. Again, we're not trying to teach people to repeat things, but
Yeah.
helping them learn how to teach on a child's level because that
Oh, yeah.
really is a unique skill set. So,
Absolutely.
those things alone are really great features that you have access to all of that, and I'm also impressed, Brian, that you pulled October 4th, which is actually a Sunday, and
Okay.
you knew that was gonna be I'm very impressed.
Well, that was coincidence, but yes, that's kids ministry is starting all different times a year or curriculums. If you're using something or not using something, you want to start it up. It's like we didn't want to wait till just the beginning of the school year or the beginning of the calendar year for you to have to start it. It's like no, you can start it really anytime, but when you start it, you'll start with week one, so you're not missing some of the scope and sequence that has already been developed.
Now, speaking of the scope and sequence, and again, this is off
Yeah,
script,
yeah,
but
yeah.
tell us a little bit about the brain behind that, the heart behind why are we focusing on these specific stories? How
Yeah,
long is it? Are we talking a year, 2 year, 3 years?
yeah,
Talk us through some of the
sure.
potatoes of that.
We knew that was a big deal to figure out like, okay, what I mean, and churches would want to know, where is this going? And so our team did a lot of work both internally and we've got some great, just Bible trained, teaching folks here, but we also went to some other kids ministry experts around the country and said, hey, what do you prefer? What's worked? And so all that to say, we have a 3-year scope and sequence. The name of the curriculum, God's Kids, really just came from this idea of, okay, they're both God's kids in that he's the one that created them, but also even as a church, it's like, yeah, these are not our kids as parents. These are not our kids. These are God's kids. So how do we even from a um, principled standpoint at the beginning of it, kind of set it up like, yeah, you're God's kids. You're part of His family. So with that in mind, there's 3 big pillars to the God's Kids curriculum: God's family, God's story, and God's character. And so each of those 3 pillars are going to be kind of interwoven throughout all 3 years. You'll hit them in 6-week chunks, and then keep returning to another one of those pillars, and then it'll weave all together. And the 6 weeks is just simply to create enough like interest for 6 weeks, but then change it up so the kids kind of are seeing something new for the next 6 weeks. And so God's family is really just trying to hit on this thought of you're not alone. I mean, in a world that where loneliness and all those things that we feel as adults have kind of seeped into even the kids level, it's like no, you're not alone. You're part of God's family. You're part of something big. God's character. I mean, in this world where um, it's hard to know like, well, what's trustworthy, what's good, what's like, what can I depend on? Well, God's character is something you can depend on, and so you always know you can go to that, and He's a good God. And then God's story, again, in a world where truth is so much up for grabs, it's like, well, what is true these days? No, God's story, God's word, that is the truth that we need to cling to. So one of those three themes to be just again woven throughout all 3 years. So it's not going to go through scripture from Genesis to Revelation in order. It's going to hit on the Bible stories and Bible passages that illustrate God's story or God's character or God's family, and then just keep weaving those through those 3 years. We'll hit Old Testament, New Testament, we'll hit all parts of scriptures. But our thought was, if a kid went through all 156 weeks of that, when we want them to walk away knowing, again, God's character is good, God's story is true, God's family is where I belong, and they know the scriptures that have supported those elements.
The God's character piece especially, I really gravitate to. That is so important. I think that is gonna help really shape the way they think, right? Because when you can understand who God is and why he does what he does,
Yeah.
that's gonna explain so much in scripture. It's gonna help them have the right lens to view the world through. So all of that, again, if you're listening, that's a great approach. And I like to remind everyone every curricula is gonna come from a unique perspective, right?
Mhm.
So coming at this, you wanna know, "Hey, does this align with our values as a church? Is this aligned for what we need right now in our ministry?" So as you're assessing and
Yeah.
figuring out, "Is this a good fit?" Those are all the right things, to keep in mind of, "Okay, does this fit with what we're hoping to produce in our kids?"
Yeah.
And even that reminder of they're God's kids, and
Mhm.
it's not whether you're the parent or the kids ministry leader, they're not yours, they're his, and we're
Mhm.
stewarding them uh,
Mhm.
until, that time ends where he takes
Yeah.
that responsibility and they're on their own, you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so such a
That's
beautiful reminder even in that name.
yeah.
As we kind of wrap up, I'd love to hear how can a church who's interested, in bringing God's kids to their ministry, what would be the practical next step? I'm sure a website, but would they
Yeah.
talk to somebody about it? Tell us about it.
Yeah. So, because this is a new endeavor for us, we basically took our Right Now, name and we said, okay, all of our kids curriculum stuff's gonna be under Right Now Kids. So rightnowkids.org is where we have all the curriculum for kids stuff listed. We want to make sure that, I mean, I know this is a big decision for churches. And so we want to make sure that they had access to everything they hopefully would need to really understand and evaluate it. So anybody can go in there, a kidsman leader or a volunteer can get 2 weeks worth of like full access to all the curriculum. So they can look at it, look at all the videos, look at all the written pieces, even look at the parent app and go, how does this all work together? And so you can see 2 full weeks worth of stuff anytime for as long as you need to kind of make that decision. And then whenever a church would say, hopefully, hey, this could really fit our needs and they sign up, then it's just really a matter of choosing, hey, our start date's going to be October the 4th or whatever it is. And then we know that it takes time to implement that. So whenever your start date is, you'll get 30 days in advance of that to really do all the implementation without having to pay for it yet. And then the pay date would be like your first week that you're implementing it. And that way you can get it all set up, tinker with it, make all your volunteers, have access to whatever you need to do. And then you got, go time on whatever, October the 4th. So, but the first easy thing would really just be to go look at those 2 full lessons and just go, okay, is this going to fit our needs? Is this things that we want? And like you said, there's a lot of great curriculum out there. We know that again, there's different flavors and needs in different churches and different environments. And we would love to, of course, serve as many as we can, but at the same time, we know that you really got to look at it thoroughly to know if it's a good fit for you.
So good. And yeah, if you're listening again, run this through your values, your vision. We actually just recorded a podcast and Hunter Williams with the Cross Farm Kidman. He talked about that. If you have your values, your vision, your goals in place, choosing something like a curriculum is going to be a lot easier than you think it is because you're going to run all of that through what you're trying to do in your ministry. So take that time to step back. Maybe you've used the same curriculum for a while. You may be coming up to the end of a subscription or the end of a scope and sequence and just analyze and ask the Lord, ask the families in your church, the volunteers, your senior pastor, kind of get an idea. Hey, is what we're doing right now working? Or is it time to do something new?
Mm.
And this is a great thing to look into. So add it to your list, rightnowkids.org. And their team is, I'm sure, happy to answer questions. And even that 2 weeks of sneak peek is super helpful because you can really dive in. Have some of your volunteers look at it. Your key bought in volunteers would love to give you feedback on, they're the ones who are going to be using it. So get their thoughts, reach out to maybe some of those key families and I know the team is going to be super happy to be able to connect with you and help answer questions because we get that it's a big decision. So, Brian, thank you for all you and your team have done to put this resource out. I know it is a big endeavor with everything from videos to curricula to worship songs, all the things. So, we love it.
It's a big deal. Well, thanks, Hannah. Yeah, we're diving into the deep end, but again, I look at ministries like what you guys are doing and just some of these other churches that have come alongside, and we're thankful to learn a lot from those that are out there and steeped in it like you guys are.
Well, we appreciate you. We're always happy to partner and help you guys get out there for the people who need to find you. So thank you again. And if you're listening, again, you can check that out at rightnowkids.org and see all the things they have to offer. And again, Right Now Media as well. If you weren't familiar with some of their training and Sunday school resources, you can check those out as well. Thanks so much, Brian. Have a great day, everyone.